Well, we may be going into lockdown, but we are certainly not alone. We've got a map for you that just shows how many countries are in lockdown. It'll pop up on the screen shortly. The red indicates countries in lockdown or who are about to go into lockdown or who have declared a state of emergency. It represents a total of 1.2 billion people. Now, the latest is India. They have gone into lockdown, but so many countries across the world. New Zealand has also announced it's going into lockdown, very similar to us. Australia, of course, I think is in lockdown too. But even countries like Papua New Guinea, just north of Australia there, it's remarkable. They too are going into lockdown.
It's important to indicate the figure that it's about 2.6 billion worldwide.
Yes.
These are people that we understand are going to be confined to lockdowns as countries try to fight this COVID-19 war. It's going to be very interesting, Sal, to see how countries that have large populations like India, in excess of 1 billion people, how this lockdown is actually going to be conducted as far as that country is concerned.
You can see if you look at North America, you look at Europe, those red dots really are just flooding that entire map there. And that just shows us really the epicenter now is in Europe, and great concerns that it will be moving to North America, that it's ramping up there. People are preparing there. But just to list some of the countries in Europe, of course, Italy, as we're all very well aware, and then the United Kingdom, which of course is no longer part of Europe, but it's still close enough. Spain. Moscow is also in lockdown.
That's very interesting. We actually haven't heard much from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Very quiet. But nonetheless, Sal, I want to see if our team could bring up the African continental map, and you can see there that the number of those red dots are spread all over the continent of Africa. And of course, we in South Africa are among those countries that are on lockdown.
It just strikes
going
me.
Into lockdown.
Yes, I mean, certainly nowhere near as bad as other areas, but from Cape to Cairo, Egypt and South Africa, we have the highest numbers, and our numbers here in South Africa, of course, making dramatic jumps, which is in line what they expect of the disease, which tells us really that this lockdown that is coming Friday morning is the right thing to do. We have so many questions, of course, but it is hopefully we'll get clarity with those cluster meetings today from the ministers. It is absolutely crucial. Let's just have a closer look at the United States, because that is an area. I was speaking to a doctor last night in California, and he was saying that they are preparing now for the worst. There are 48 states, I think, in total now in lockdown.
America.
Yes, in America. So that's France and that's Europe. So, but you can see, if we just actually focus now a little bit, all the countries are affected, and Italy, of course, is still really in the worst of this virus.
It's been described to be at least one of those countries that are fast becoming the epicenter of the lockdown. Sally, it's important also, I think, to point out that on the continent of Africa, there is somewhat of a concern, because the majority of the countries are third world countries, which means resources-wise, they're not going to be able to manage should there be a big spread of this COVID-19. I mean, you see in countries, for example, like Zimbabwe, where you've only just reported 2 cases and already you have had a death. And the minister there apologizing to the family, importantly, that they couldn't manage that situation perhaps as well as they should have.
Yeah, and countries, you know, obviously we're going into a lockdown, but also countries such as Namibia are announcing that. But let's just take a look at the breakdown in our country. By far the biggest number of cases is in Gauteng, 302 people, and then that's followed by the Western Cape. But even, you know, far-flung areas, Northern Cape, which doesn't have a lot of people compared to Gauteng, they've got 2 people now. You
see KZN, there's about 80 cases there. And fast following KZN, because the 3 provinces, Gauteng, Western Cape and KZN, they have been almost like the provinces that have had the most pronounced cases. Then you quickly see the Free State. That is amassing a good number of these cases. And that's a concern. That's why the Minister of Health, Kips, emphasizing that we have got to stem the tide of this COVID-19 before it is unmanageable.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, if we look at the map again, Limpopo has got 4 cases, but that absolute plea from the MEC for Health saying, please don't come home for Easter. You're going to bring the virus with you. And I understand people are already trying to go home.
Exactly. And adding to the MEC's call, the MEC in the Limpopo province, you have the traditional leaders who've also added to that call to say, stay where you are, do not come to rural parts of the country because you are going to infect perhaps the most vulnerable in the country. And that's a major concern. We've got to heed that call. Whenever there is a holiday, people have this propensity to want to move down to their homes. Yes, we know that they have grandparents there and parents who are elderly, but it is those very same elderly people who are going to be hardest hit.
On a positive note, what I saw yesterday when I was driving home, lots of families out walking. And I'm always trying to look for the silver lining, and maybe we'll see that as we sort of go into that lockdown and we isolate with our nuclear families, hopefully that will bring togetherness and not problems. But it was good to see lots of people out walking, going for runs. Let's hope that continues.
Can't ignore the panic buying, though. I mean,
no, we can't.
People are just
we absolutely
panicked.
Can't.
Well, let's perhaps bring you